But just as Dr. Leon said, I had the opportunity of working with AB60 this semester. I actually started in the summer. I was part of that first workshop that we did in June at Canal Alliance. I remember her telling us they were hoping for at least 15 people to show up, and we had so much more. And Dr. Leon and I were sitting at the very last table where we get to ask every community member if they wanted to work with a student, and pretty much everyone said yes. So we realized right then and there like how important this was for the people who came, because mainly it was the canal area, but there was even people driving like from Novato and a little farther just because they really wanted to hear about this resource. And so, from the student perspective, just as she said, we had espacios de apoyo. So, we had community members come and they came to work with us, which was really nice because we got to work with them more sort of at an individual level and kind of spend more time working with each person. We did a lot of studying, so practicing for like those exams, the permit tests, the one that you take at the DMV, which is that knowledge test before you can actually start driving. A lot of students practice with that. We help them set up DMV accounts, make the appointments, understand like all the information that there is, what documents you need to bring once you have your appointment. And another part that we realized was that we're having people come in and they were sharing these experiences of maybe someone who took the test like 8 or 9 times and they still weren't passing, someone who had a very horrible experience of even getting their ID taken away, or the trouble that they're having over there because there's not always Spanish interpretation at the DMV. And so, even though we have AB60 as a law in California, there were still so many challenges present, so many barriers, because not everyone has an easy time accessing all the steps to go through and obtain your license. And so, while working with them, we realized this is something that is really, really important. And I think thinking about us, for most of us, we probably think of having a license and we kind of take it for granted. It's very easy. In California, you 16 years old and you get your driver's license. So we don't even think twice about it because it's very linear. But for a lot of the community members, Spanish is their first language or an indigenous language. They have different literacy levels. So maybe difficulty with reading or writing. And as we know, the permit test, part of that is having to take the exam and you read the questions. And then typically they offer it on the computer. So if someone comes in and they're not as comfortable with using technology, then that's just another barrier that's there. And so really for the espacios de apoyo, it was about sitting down with people and just taking the time so that they feel more confident. We got super excited every time we heard like another person passed their permit test and they're going on to get their behind the wheel. And I think it was just last week that Dr. Leon told me about someone who we've been working with and they passed the driver's test. And then we have people from the partner organizations like Karen who are going to the DMV with people and helping them and advocating there. So it's just been super fun to see. And in our class, I think something that really ties it in is this concept, this framework that we learned about legal violence. And it talks about how violence isn't just like physical violence, but emotional violence. And it's something that happens at the daily level and it's in our institutions. And that's the legal aspect of it. So for these people, every time that they get in the car, and if you don't have a license and you're undocumented, it's a risk. Deportation could be a possible outcome. In class, we learned about how sometimes traffic stops are some of the highest reasons why a person could face deportation. So, people who are driving without a license, it is a real risk, and that's part of the struggle, that aspect of legal violence, and also it's embedded into sort of our systems that police can stop and do those traffic stops that leads to deportation. And even the DMV, as the DMV institution, like yes, they have the AB60 law, but there's still so many barriers that are in place that make it difficult to obtain the license. So it was really awesome to be part of this project. I highly recommend for those who are Spanish speakers out there, if you're interested in doing something a little bit different than maybe other service learning experiences that you have. So thank you very much for